So, gentlemen, I'm excited to reflect a little bit on what we've learned this week at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. I think there were a lot of themes that we thought might be prevalent and were. AI, of course, cloud, of course, and then some things that maybe no one was expecting to discuss at such a level of detail. But to start out with, Andrew, maybe you can give us a little bit of perspective on this idea of telco to techco transformation. It's something the industry's been talking about for a long time. Seems a little more tangible this year, right?
Well, thanks for inviting us to this conversation and being here at Mobile World Congress. It's the energies is you can touch it. It's amazing, and I think that telco to techno piece, I do think it's real, and I think it's real because there are so many partners, customers, and technology and telco providers looking at how they are moving from workloads to platforms. And when that happens, it's not just telco, but it's the technology infusion of that. When I then see what's coming from the likes of their pathways to 6G, sovereignty is another real requirement that they've talked about with me frequently. And also how they can really develop those workloads and make them, work wherever they need to be best served, whether that be in a private cloud, on a premise, or in a public cloud. There's a real need here now then from a telco to really evolving into that kind of techno-type company.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting comment. In the past 2 years, we've talked a lot about point solutions, and now we're kind of talking about systems and platforms that are really driving meaningful change. Fran, what are your observations? What did you come into the show thinking would stand out? What has actually stood out?
How did it transpire? Yeah, coming into the show, and I was asked the question last week, just prior to the show, kind of what did we think the key themes would be? As kind of a layer, common cloud platform is certainly something that we've been seeing in Red Hat for some time now in telco, which is this desire to move to much more consistent common infrastructure, both for network and for IT workloads, and now AI workloads as well. So that's kind of foundational. The next layer up was the discussion on AI, and actually the combination of AI and automation coming together. So automation has been a theme in telco for quite a number of years. The addition now of AI is making it practical. So wiring up the AI infrastructure, the AI applications into the automation platforms was key. And then finally on sovereignty, and Andrew mentioned sovereignty, interesting coming in, we were thinking of sovereignty from a regional perspective, but actually in some of the conversations we've had, it's kind of coming down to national sovereignty as well, even within the same region. So the themes proved to be absolutely spot on, but then some nuances and some additional learnings as well.
So let's talk a little bit more about digital sovereignty. To your point, I was thinking about it more regionally, but now it seems to be coming down to country level. I think there's a number of drivers there, but I mean, what have you been hearing from your customers as you discuss this with operators?
Well, with operators, what's interesting in the sovereignty discussion is how uniquely well positioned they are to provide sovereign solutions. So for many, many years, they've been building essentially sovereign telco networks. So with the increased focus now on providing sovereign solutions to enterprises, and as carriers look for new revenue streams as well, the digital sovereignty debate represents an opportunity for that new revenue stream where they can build and provide to others these sovereign regional or in-country networks based on their previous existing technology.
As a follow-up to that, it's a bit of a time-bound opportunity though, right? Like it's something that is needed today, but it's something that they're competing with hyperscalers to provide, right?
They're certainly competing, and there'll always be competition in the cloud space. But I think, again, because of the telco, the way they've been operating for many, many years under, national regulation, building essentially in-country sovereign networks, I think they are very, very well positioned. And overall with telco, they have some unique infrastructure offerings, including their radio offerings as well, to be able to place applications and infrastructure and offer that to third parties in a way that perhaps hyperscalers can't do.
And then AI adds another level to this, right? Whether that's AI for industrial needs, whether that's AI for national level needs. But what are you seeing in terms of this idea of AI and digital sovereignty combining?
I think they come very closely and neatly together. If not, they are one in the same in terms of I would struggle to be able to follow a sovereign capability or platform that doesn't have an infused level of AI. Why? They're going to need to be able to reason quickly is this applicable in this country? Is it not applicable in this country? Am I meeting the rules of the sovereign platform to be able to deliver certainty, to be able to guarantee resiliency? So I think they become very much interlinked. And I think what I'm seeing from customers is they're looking for that as well, right? They're looking for be able to, as Fran said, connect to carriers who have that infrastructure in place, whether that be the data center capability, whether that be the network that they can rely on, but then add their models to be able to run their applications and know that it is meeting their sovereign requirements. AI is going to be a fun part of that.
Yeah, I mean, AI, obviously the standout theme from the show, but it is Mobile World Congress, so maybe we talk a little bit about 5G and mobile networking. I've seen a lot of 6G conversations on the stands, but it's been much more practical, much more grounded, not so much aspirational and hype. There's a clear pathway there. So maybe you could both weigh in on where we are today with 5G in terms of transition from NSA to SA, 5G Advanced, and what that means, particularly in the context of AI as an enabler of network autonomy as we move towards 6G. Fran?
It's quite the question to cover. If we step back and maybe look at 5G, and 5G has been a success, and it's been, I suppose, disappointing to varying degrees, right? The success is in terms of speed of adoption. I think it was the fastest adopted generation of all our previous generations in mobile. So the technology stood up, the consumers adopted it, but from a new revenue stream perspective, it was disappointing, right? I think that's been a universally agreed outcome. So as we go into 6G, to your point, there is a very distinct focus on where will the new revenue streams come from. In the case of 5G, from a consumer point of view, that really was based on fixed wireless access, was kind of the primary new revenue stream that came in certain areas. In 6G, that's going to be there as well, but there's going to be much more of a focus now on the enterprise, right? So you'll see carriers building their 6G networks, but also looking at, and this is where AI and sovereignty becomes important, at how can I monetize that investment with a very firm focus on enterprise and potentially a focus on this new generation of emerging devices, things like wearables and so on, where it'll be both a consumer proposition, but also enterprise and a device proposition as well.
Yeah. I mean, what's your perspective there? I think this is an interesting comment in terms of, is it a 10-year cycle because that's how long the standardization work takes, or is it a 10-year cycle because that's when the use case emerges and when the business becomes viable?
Well, I think there are use cases that are around even today. And I think with open source technologies, with 6G, there's a coming together of capability that actually for the enterprise, as Fran was talking about, makes this real, and it makes it real in maybe a shorter timeline than 10 years, right? We've been listening to customers around their 6G journey. They're talking about 2030, 2031. That's not 6 years, that's less than half that. So I think the reason that this becomes really meaningful is the ability to run platforms or solutions in a multi-tenant environment that will scale across that infrastructure. There's examples out on the floor that are really exciting. They're around being able to run 8K streaming video on a single server, single system, single workload, but it's also running the network component, it's running the 6G service, and it's running the streaming service, all wrapped using open technologies, open source technologies. That's really exciting. And that's where 6G becomes really powerful for the enterprise.
I think to build on that, just to your 10-year question, and you mentioned 5G, NSA, and SA, I think we're starting to see a little bit of a change where we went through these very discrete, yes, there was 3G, 10 years went by, there was 4G. You're seeing a more iterative approach to the generation. So you've had in 5G, we did launch NSA first, then there was SA, now we have 5G Advanced. That's three kind of flavors of 5G and then on to 6G. I think we are seeing the industry from an infrastructure and a software perspective getting more iterative, kind of more step-by-step versus the big bang every 10 years.
And that's the right approach. It's got to be, right? I mean, it'll deliver value more incrementally, as you said, but not having to wait for the entire ecosystem to rally around something that's been defined through the standards body, right?
And I think, collectively the industry's learned from that and have workloads and use cases ready to go now that they want to test and run, versus maybe in the past they were kind of waiting for the platform, then build the use cases. They're kind of stacking them up now, ready to go.
So I'd ask you now for some summary thoughts, as you leave Barcelona, as you go and meet with your colleagues and your collaborators. What are you going to take away from the show that will inform Red Hat's strategy for the next year?
Well, I think we're lucky in that we have a set of platforms at Red Hat that are built on open standards that allow and deliver to hybrid multi-cloud that has a sovereign flavor to it as well, which is absolutely essential. But also looking at how we're helping customers containerize and virtualize ready for that 6G journey. And we're absolutely ready to do that. And so taking that strategy away, I think it's reaffirmed that we're on the right path. We're certainly getting validation back from customers to that effect. And we've got to continue to show up and earn the right, and we'll continue to do that.
I think, the last week has absolutely reinforced the belief we had coming into the show, which is, the era of common infrastructure, common cloud in telco is absolutely here. So that's been really reinforced here. And I think the practical focus on new monetization opportunities, particularly in sovereign and in AI, areas where telcos can excel and outperform the others, it's been absolutely proven true here this week as well. So I think, those three themes I talked about coming in, leaving the show absolutely even stronger, more amplified than we had before. So,
well, excellent, gentlemen. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective with me and with our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.